Marx, whom I might describe as the dean of distressed investors, has said capitalism without bankruptcy is like Catholicism without hell. And he was, of course, referring to the government stimulus that turned the pandemic sell-off right into a historic rally.
Yes.
What if future credit cycles are similarly cut short by massive and immediate monetary and fiscal intervention?
You know, what we are going through right now is the new normal. You saw it after there's nothing so surprising about the government and the central banks doing what they're doing. You saw them do it in 2008, right? This is, I think the fact that it's going to be cut short is reality going forward, right? But I think the only point we would make is when central banks come in, as they have in this cycle, they focus much more on the investment grade markets. Central banks cannot lose money by investing in riskier high-yield debt to support companies. And I think we've seen time and time again, like after 2008, same drill, supporting investment grade markets, not high yield, same drill this time. So I think our point of view would be just accept kind of the new reality with all this kind of focus.
And there is a future for distressed debt investors in that world.
Can I tell you? Absolutely. Look at what this little mini cycle, this modest cycle, look at the opportunity it's created. Next cycle, we don't think is going to be 11 years from now. It's not going to be that 11-year recovery like you saw from 2008 to 2020. It's going to be faster. And when it happens, it's actually going to be deeper, because some of the things which needed to get fixed in this cycle never got fixed. I think this cycle, because of the amazing support out there, it's going to start to cycle down. 3 years from now, 4 years from now, when there is the next cycle, we think it's going to be much bigger than the 10% over 2-year default rate cycle. It's going to be bigger than kind of what we just saw.
You've invested in some hotel debt. Yeah. You've invested in airplane debt.
Yeah.
You've invested in packaging company debt, drain and gutter manufacturing company debt. Yeah. Where do you see the best opportunities developing over the next 1 to 2 years?
Yeah. Some of the most interesting stuff for us, we think, is going to come from Europe. They were not in such a great place coming into the COVID crash. Germany and Italy had negative GDP quarters. There was $700 billion of bad debt still sitting on bank balance sheets. And now they had a worse recession than we did here in the US. Their recovery is much more constipated than what we've had here in the US for 2021.
You won't touch oil and gas, right? How come?
We got hurt by it. We made some modest investments, so not a particularly large part of our portfolio in oil and gas. And what we found was, you know, and this was after 2015, after the oil and gas crash. And what we found after that, and those investments really hurt. As we look back at it, you know, we are so subject to a commodity price in oil and gas, which is set in Saudi Arabia by the low-cost producer, not by the high-cost Texas shale guy. So, and as we kind of looked at that, you know, and by the way, oil and gas, you can make a lot of money, lose a lot of money. You know, we like investing in a certain risk-return corridor. Today, if you invest in oil and gas, you could make a lot of money, but that's not for us. We like investing in that risk-return corridor, and with those modest investments, we found we had no control. So I think as we look at the future, for us, we think oil and gas, it's just not investable for SVP. I'm sure it's perfectly investable for a bunch of other people, just not for us.
What other industries won't you touch?
We've got a really, I know as the sort of distressed or special situation investors, right? We're not as brave as as people think we might be. So there are industries we won't touch, there are geographies we won't touch. So among the industries, when you're in these very technology-oriented businesses, not for us. When you're talking about investing in distressed banks, the bank balance sheets they're opaque to an investor, right? You never get a chance to kind of go do the underwriting deal by deal or loan by loan. Not really for us. And by the way, emerging markets where the rule of law is a little different than US and Europe, not for us. Parts of Europe, and not all of Europe is so interesting, not for us. So if I started to catalog all the no-go areas, right, we've got plenty of no-go areas which we've developed.